We have quite a crowd today. I'm really pleased that you're all here. Thank you very much for attending our second event. As you can tell, we have a variety of folks here who are interested in the current hot topic, which are mosquitoes that are breeding terrible diseases and, of course, water conservation. How in the world do you conserve water and not create breeding grounds for these horrible little creatures that are running around? For those of you who have not been here before, our mission, the Chino Basin Water Conservation District, we are a special district committed to capturing and percolating storm water into the Chino groundwater basin. We also provide a wide range of water conservation education for our area citizens, our businesses, and professionals. Before we go further, I'd like to make some special introductions, even though we went around the room. We have several of our board members here today. Our treasurer and director, Jeffrey Vanden Heuvel, who introduced himself just a little while ago. We also have Director Dr. Hanif Gul Mohammed, Director Al Yoakum, and Director Margaret Hamilton. In addition, we have some special guests. We have Upland Council member Carol Timlins. Tim, thank you for being here. We have IEUA Director Jasmine Hall. She's from the Fontana area. And then we have a couple of field representatives. We have Christopher Craig for Assemblyman Freddie Rodriguez. Where are you, Chris? Over here. And then we also have Michael Cervantes. And I didn't know that you were on our list, so I apologize, from Norma Torres's office. Kurt Hagman will be joining us, Supervisor Hagman, but he's at another meeting, so he may be here a few minutes late. We welcome you to tour our facility after the event. Hopefully the rain will hold off for you. We keep experimenting with these microphones. Now it seems to be working. And I also invite you to reach out to our staff for any questions that you have regarding water conservation and how we can partner with your agencies or your businesses or help you individually on water conservation. We're very pleased, Kurt's here. We're very pleased to host this extremely important conversation today, and we have some experts in the field here to discuss the current events. We're thrilled to have Kelly Middleton from the Greater Los Angeles County Vector Control District as our moderator today. LA County has a longer history, actually, of dealing with these invasive mosquito species than we do. We're happy to have this opportunity to learn from our neighboring county as well. I'd like to take a moment and introduce Supervisor Kurt Hagman. He just arrived. And a quick bio on Kurt. He was elected to serve the San Bernardino County 4th District in November of 2014. 4th District includes the cities of Chino, Chino Hills, Montclair, Ontario, and the southern portion of Upland. The supervisor has an extensive resume of public service. In 2004, he was elected to the Chino Hills City Council, serving as mayor in 2008. He's worked on numerous regional committees and is especially proud of his past involvement with the San Bernardino County Workforce Investment Board, which is tasked with addressing major workforce issues within our county. Mr. Hagman was elected to the California legislature in 2008 and was quickly selected as Assistant Republican Floor Leader by his peers. He served in the Assembly until 2014. Along with supervisorial duties, he also serves as a board of director on the Southern California Association of Governments, Omnitrans, and the San Bernardino County Associated Governments. Supervisor Hagman earned his Bachelor of Arts degree in psychology at UCLA. He and his wife Grace have 2 children, Jonathan, a student at UCLA, and Elizabeth, a student at Ayala High School. Mr. Hagman's experience in local and state government, as well as a small business owner, has provided him with insight into issues facing his constituency. Kurt?
Thank you so much. The biggest thing to say is that they're diehard SC fans, so we always have to, especially if their husband have side bets, and the bigger games coming up each year, right?
Yes.
I think I still owe you a couple of dinners at this point. But thank you for having me here. Thank you for inviting me, Eunice. And this is such a great facility. I remember the first time I came here. Is that my first?
3 or 4 years.
Yeah, it's about 3 or 4 years. I actually brought my kids here too for one of the topics, and we were just amazed what a fantastic job that they've done. And this is one of the brainchilds of our executive director Eunice and some of the staff and water experts from around the area to come out and say, we're going to focus on education and demonstration projects for the Chino Valley region. And at the state level, for all you involved in water, you know that we went through the water bonds a couple of times. In the last 6 years, I think I've been through at least the water policy. And then that was my freshman year at the legislature, and then we finally got the bonds out 6 years later. Whether we ever do the right things with those bonds, we'll see, because we haven't done a very good job, the state hasn't put those through there. But we're actually spending, I think, more money on conservation to have more results than building new reservoirs and pathways and stuff. So, you know, what their mission here is very, very important. We thank you for building this great facility. So let's hear it for the facility. This is your first time you've been here. But just like water is not in a vacuum and everything else, all these things have to fit together. We have some wonderful public agencies protecting our health, and the topics we have today cannot be better for us to bring up today. We're going to hear from experts from various fields about responsible water capture and retention strategies to prevent the breeding of mosquitoes and the spread of, I'm not going to try to pronounce all the expert names, but Zika, what's that one, dengue? Dengue? Okay, what's the last one? Now, who comes up with chikungunya? Okay, who comes up with those kind of names? But okay, bad things for little mosquitoes that get us all sick. So we're going to hear from these experts later on today and see how we can avoid. But I didn't know what a vector control was either until I got on the city council, and they do a fantastic job of trying to combat these little critters all around. And my wife is actually from the previous office, the liaison for the county, so I always had to hear all the updates as the different meetings came up. But they did a great job. But, you know, conservation in general, as we know, we've been going through a drought. We have all these things going on up here. The state snowpack is at 83% as of March 1st, which is not bad, but we would love to have much higher than 100%. We're still not there yet. Even the El Nino, we can't get to the point where we're on an average water thing. So this could be our 5th year of drought in a row. So conservation has to be at our forefront at all times. And then while we increase the water capture retention, is required to sustain Chino Basin. Other groundwater basins in the region, it must be done responsibly to avoid the spread of the disease-carrying vectors. Just last year, the first case of invasive mosquito species, again, the name, guys? There you go, Aedes albopicus. Also known for the yellow fever mosquito, was reported in Montclair. And another invasive mosquito, another one, Aedes with the TS, yes, it's also known as the Asian tiger mosquito. See, those are much better names. Was reported in Upland. Okay, both invasive, they have the potential to transmit the dengue, chikungunya, and Zika viruses, and can lay eggs in very small water sources. Even a bottle cap full of water is enough for them to breed in. So you can see, just after the rain we had this morning, how many pools of water we had everywhere. If we're not working at all those things, looking at that flow, we could be in very poor chances of keeping these guys, you know, baited down. So today's discussion, we'll hear more about the status of invasive mosquitoes in our state and region, as well as recommendation for rainwater harvesting and stormwater management practices to minimize standing water for breeding. We hope that the conversations and partnerships between vector control districts, water agencies, municipalities, the residents continue to both sustain our water in the future Chino Valley Basin and other groundwater basins while preventing the spread of invasive mosquitoes. To speak more on this issue and to pronounce all those fancy names, we are proud to host this panel of experts. Kelly Middleton, Director of Community Affairs at Greater Los Angeles County Vector Control District. Dr. Renjie Hu, Supervising Public Health Biologist at California Department of Public Health. Dr. Min-Ling Cheng, the General Manager. And Brian Reisinger, the Community Outreach Coordinator from West Valley Mosquito Vector Control. And Dr. Bill Walton, Professor and Vice Chair of Entomology at the University of California, Riverside, who will be connecting in remotely later to present and be part of the panel discussion. And with that, Kelly, I'm going to turn it back over to you to go further. Thank you. All the fancy names like that.
Nobody speaks Latin.
Exactly. My mom used to teach Latin. I haven't got a word of it.
Go home and impress her tonight.
Yes.
Can you hear me on this? Okay. I want to thank you very much for the introduction, and I want to thank the Chino Basin Water Conservation District for this invitation. I was really quite impressed with the concept of bringing vector control into the water discussions. We've been talking to
water agencies and conservation folks for years, folks that do habitat restoration. But it's always one of those messages that's kind of a hard sell because everybody else has their own mandates, which we understand. And we're all under mandate to conserve water and to not waste water. And unfortunately, the unintended consequence of some of these planning decisions now are increased risk to public health. And so the idea of bringing all of you together with the experts in vector control, I think was very ingenious, and I'm really proud to be a part of this today. We have a lot of great folks on the panel this evening, or this afternoon. I'm going to start with Renjie Hu. As noted, he's the supervising public health biologist for the Ontario office of California Department of Public Health. And I've worked with Renjie for many years. He's a great resource to all the vector control districts in California. Renjie.
Thank you very much, Kelly. Yes, we have been working together for many years, that's for sure. Thank you very much for inviting me to give a update on statewide Aedes aegypti and albopictus situation and the diseases they transmit. Oh, I control here, right? Sorry about that. So this is just the title. And before I give a update on the Aedes situation and diseases they transmit, I'll just give you a brief introduction of our group. This is CDPH, it's California Department of Public Health, and our section called the Vector-Borne Disease Section. Our mission is to protect the health and well-being of all Californians from insect and animal transmitted diseases and injurious pests. We are actively involved in surveillance and control of many diseases, including mosquito-borne, tick-borne, rodent-borne, and flea-borne diseases, and any other public health insects like bed bugs, scorpions, this kind, anything you deal with on a daily basis. And this is the distribution of our offices. We have 27 full-time positions, 3 regions, and my office in Ontario covers Southern California, about 14 counties, 27 million people. So I'm the supervising public health biologist for Southern region. And we're actually working with many agencies like West Valley and Greater LA Vector Control District, and also water district as well. We work with university, academia, and dealing with different issues, working with the U.S. Forest Service, and conduct a plague hantavirus surveillance at all national forests throughout the state. We have 18 national forests, and working with the National Park Service, like Yosemite, if you heard last couple of years, the plague outbreak and the hantavirus outbreak. We were in the field working with them, and many other state and federal agencies. We do a lot of things, including consultation, assistance, and training, and also most likely we're coordinating alphavirus surveillance programs, just like the southern region, and we work with all the districts and coordinating vector surveillance and disease surveillance, and come up with some solutions for control and prevention purposes. And also we have a corporate agreement. Anybody signing with us, we have our commitment to help each other to get tasks carried out. And we have technician certification and continuing education programs, meaning all the technicians hired by the district have to certify by the state. They have exams, they have a continuation program they have to go through and get this certified. With all these things, I'll just give you a brief introduction of our group. And today, we're going to talk about the Aedes mosquito invaders. These are 2 Aedes species, was not native in California, but just recently introduced and then became a very serious public health threat. On the left is Aedes albopictus, as somebody mentioned is Asian tiger mosquito. On the right, Aedes aegypti, the yellow fever mosquito. And both are the so-called container breeders. Only a little bit of water they can actually produce in the water, lay eggs and became like a larvae, pupae, and then eventually emerge. Historically, both species came to California, but like in the 40s, 70s, 80s, due to the shipment of the automobile tires from Southeast Asia, but have not had any evidence to suggest both species established in California. And the recent infestation kind of activities, we did, the district did, we all coordinated activities, started on September 2nd, 2011. And this is a result of a resident called the district, say, oh, I got a mosquito bite during daytime. And one thing is very important for this group as well, many cases basically result from the resident call, daytime mosquito bite and issues, called the district, so they went there. This is a trailer park in El Monte, and then sort of like in the middle of LA County. And this is the area have a lot of like a pond outside, and then the standing water, and the resident find that this mosquitoes. So San Gabriel Valley district went there, discovered this albopictus in the area. For Aedes aegypti, the first discovery in the state is on June 7th in Madera County in the Central Valley. And interestingly, they just found that they set up the mosquito traps and found this a unique looking mosquitoes, and eventually confirmed that by our group in Richmond office, this is the Aedes aegypti. Was pretty much a big deal. It never happened in the past, and then it showed up and in the middle of California. If on age, people say from Mexico, from different places, but this is a very unique discovery. We still don't know where this mosquito coming from. But due to the discovery of these both species one in 2011, one in 2013, and all these districts enhanced their surveillance activities as well as control. Since 2011 up to now, you can see many counties, I think right now 12 counties, detected Aedes aegypti and detected Aedes albopictus. This is the map to show you. Redwood is only Aedes aegypti, and this color have both species. As this, our office cover this kind of area, most of the infested area in Southern California under our jurisdiction. And this map will just give you the detail of these cities or towns within these counties, and you can see the name. We put it on the map initially, getting more and more on the list, and that's why we used the previous slides that only show the counties with the discovery of both species. And I think more and more will discover in the month or year. And why we worry about these species? And both species are very aggressive daytime biters. So people working in daytime and will get the mosquito bite, even though they also bite during the dawn dusk time, like other mosquitoes. And more importantly, these are vectors for chikungunya, dengue, and Zika virus, and maybe some other encephalitis virus. If this mosquito established the local community, there's an increased risk to getting all these mosquito-borne diseases locally. And because of the discovery of these species, and our group actually compiling the information of the diseases they can transmit. And these are the chikungunya, dengue cases we put together. Like confirmed the chikungunya have 54, probably have 160. This is up to last week. And this will have quite a few. But good news is none of these are locally acquired. These are the people visited the endemic area and got the infection. They come back here, got diagnosed as these kind of cases. both chikungunya and dengue cases are from travelers. And because Zika has been a big issue in recent months, and we also immediately enhanced our surveillance activities to put things together. We have a website designed, CDPH, California Department of Public Health. We update the cases every Friday. So every Friday you check, they will have a new number. And this is the number updated last Friday. And you can see since 2013, we already have the Zika virus in the state. But again, none of these are locally acquired. And then 2016, we have 8. And interestingly, overall I have 7 Zika cases from counties that already have 80s. So these are the things we are very concerned, because you have the vector in the county or in the area, and you have human cases in the area. If the human cases remain viremic and got bite by mosquitoes, and that is a very high potential to transmit to another person. That's the thing we need to concern. And right now, a lot of the researchers are working on this transmission mode, how this. First of all, these are the mosquito-borne disease, and the Zika is primarily transmitted by mosquito bite. But also, cases indicate they can be transmitted sexually. A recent case in Dallas is a good indication. And then also, if a virus in the blood, people always concern blood transfusion. So now the Red Cross already had instructions. You have to have like a certain days after travel to an endemic area before you can give the blood or donate blood. So these are the things. The more we get information, the more instructions we provide to different agencies as a guideline. So, because the time limit, I can only give you very brief introductions of these areas. So the key message to take home is the risk of local transmission in California right now is low. I'll give you 2 reasons. One is the discovery of Aedes population, relatively speaking, are low. You can find them, but never had a very high number you can track. So that's one thing. Second, we don't know any viremic patients in the area. So these are things you have to have several factors working together to increase the transmission risk of Zika virus in the community. And also, very important, all these vector control districts, they already enhanced their surveillance and control activity. If they find Aedes or even other mosquitoes, they control them immediately. So these are very critical aspect of the control of disease. And also, we have all, tell people don't go to this endemic area. If you have Zika virus, you just have to be taking precautions. And the good thing is they said that the Zika virus will remain in the system for about a week. So if you avoid the mosquito bite within a week of sort of incubation time period, you will have a good protection for other people. So these are things you need to keep in mind. And also we work with Department of Health and also the Environment Health people very closely to make sure as soon as they identify the human cases, and we work with vector control people and also immediately enhance the surveillance activities of these mosquitoes around the area. If I identify any increase or any new mosquito population, immediately keep them low or eradicating them. So these are the things I put together very briefly. I'm sure you have a lot of questions. Hopefully this a starting point help you. Okay, that's all I have, I think.
Thank you, Renjie. Yeah, that was the big picture. So my job now is to bring it home. So we're going to talk about vector control at the local level and how these invasive species are affecting one district. And I get the honor, unfortunately, of telling that story because we've been dealing with them the longest. We actually found, as Renjie mentioned, the first invasive Aedes in 2011 when I was actually working for a different district. And this was my biggest nightmare come true. I had been to conferences in other states. We spent time in Kentucky talking to parents who said their kids can't go outside and play because they just get chewed up all the time. And my thought was, oh, thank God we don't have that mosquito here. Sure enough, it shows up in my district. So we've been battling the problem locally, and as I moved down to Greater LA County vector control, the problem extends, and we now even have more to deal with. So this is really our urban reality. These are tropical to temperate species. And unfortunately, urban areas provide them all of the resources they need to do very, very well in Southern California. For those of you who are unfamiliar with how vector control districts work, there are, just in LA County alone, we have a very large population. So we have 5 different vector control districts that serve the area. And I guess across the state, we're upwards of 80 to 90 different agencies that provide mosquito and vector control. At the end of the presentation, I have a slide on there that will provide you a link to get to your district. And a lot of times it's hard to find out what district serves my area, so that will come in handy. But we're all, for the most part, many of us are independent special districts, and our job really is to control vectors that transmit disease. Some agencies work through county health departments or city health departments, but for the most part, we're independent special districts. And we all work through an integrated vector management approach. And what that means really is that we have a lot of different tools in our tool bag to reduce mosquito numbers. Our goal is to reduce the population of mosquitoes, to reduce the risk of disease transmission to humans. And we do that really through 3 primary objectives. By 1, minimizing the population of mosquitoes during year-round. It's a proactive approach. Through inspections and service requests from residents that call that need assistance. Source reduction is really the key. If we can break the mosquito life cycle in the aquatic stage before they grow up to be biting adults, we're halfway there. It's a lot more labor intensive, but it's definitely more effective in the long run. And then we do treatments as needed to control those populations in sources that we cannot mitigate for. We do monitor mosquito populations year-round. We trap mosquitoes. We test them for various viruses that they can be transmitting, and there's quite a few of them. We have about 15 or so different species in Southern California that we watch and we manage. Oops, sorry. And then a big education and outreach component, and that's kind of what we're here to do today. A lot of what we do, we're kind of limited in our efficacy, and it really does rely on the residents and homeowners and businesses and governmental agencies to understand the role that they play and the benefits that they can also bring to the table. As we were already talking about 2 invasive species, we have the honor of having 3. We identified, as we were looking for tiger mosquitoes, we identified a 3rd species that came in from Australia. It's called Nodoscriptus, but the Australian backyard mosquito in just a couple of small communities. We don't know how this one got here either, but in Australia it's a pretty aggressive vector. They're all very similar biologically in that they're aggressive daytime biting mosquitoes. They're very pestiferous, and they have the potential to transmit some pretty wicked diseases. They could have come in locally, people traveling, bringing in eggs accidentally. We know now that we have the species established in Southern California, we know that they're moving around quite readily just in people that move from community to community, and I'll show you how that happens in a minute. But the biggest concern, as Renjie noted, is that these are highly successful vectors of some really significant vector-borne diseases, and luckily we don't have them transmitting yet, but that's our concern. Our goal is to reduce that risk. We're quite concerned about some of these diseases establishing themselves in Southern California. We now have the vectors present, and all it takes is infected travelers to come back with virus in their system, be bitten by a local mosquito, and then that mosquito continues to spread it around the neighborhood. And that's our big concern, and that's what we're really working against. These pictures show some of the folks that live like in Florida and on the East Coast where they have these species present. In these areas, when the vector populations build up to high numbers, it really is miserable to go outside. And I can tell you, talking to folks in some of our impacted communities, even going outside to the trash or going out to pick up the mail, you get bitten up. One of our coworkers works in a community where 80s are present, and she can't even spend time talking to her neighbors outside without getting a lot of bites. So they keep repellent by the back door. Anytime they go outside, they spray themselves down before they go out. I mean, that's kind of the nightmare of living with these species. And a lot of people in other states have to screen in their patios or screen in their swimming pools, even screen in their patio tables so that they can spend time outdoors without getting chewed up. These viruses are a bit different. We're all familiar with West Nile virus, and these differ in that West Nile virus requires a bird in the disease cycle. So mosquitoes bite an infected bird, pick up the virus, spread it to another bird or to another person. These viruses do not require a bird or another animal host. We can spread, or the mosquitoes can spread it directly from person to person. As Renjie mentioned, there's some other potential avenues of transmission for Zika with sexual transmission and all of these actually through blood donations. Mosquito life cycle, just so that the pictures I'm going to show you in a few minutes make some sense to you. The mosquito has a very quick life cycle. 5 to 7 days from egg to adult is pretty common in the summer. During the winter months, this will slow down a bit, but it's a very quick life cycle. Eggs are laid, depending on the species, either on the surface of water or they're laid attached, kind of glued to the edge of containers that hold standing water, or have in the past, as we'll talk about with the 80s. The larvae hatch out, feed on algae and bacteria in the water. They'll molt 3 or 4 times, and then they'll pupate, which is their cocoon stage, and then emerge as biting adults in just a few days. So it's a very quick cycle. You can see we identified our first eggs being laid of these Aedes mosquitoes just last week, which means their population then is going to continue to ramp up. By the end of summer, their populations are at quite high levels, and people are really getting eaten alive. Scale, these mosquitoes are very small. Most people think of these. We get a lot of calls in the spring with the giant mosquitoes that are coming into the house. Well, these are actually crane flies. Don't worry. They don't bite. They don't transmit disease. You can just shoo them back outside. It is only the female mosquitoes that bite, by the way, and they bite because they need protein from vertebrate blood in order to lay eggs or to develop their eggs. You can ignore those. The Aedes mosquitoes that we're talking about are really quite tiny, on average of 1/8 to 1/4 inch in size. I have some out on the display table in the lobby. Please take a look at that, and you can see what they look like up close. The biggest challenge we face is the eggs of these species. Because the eggs of Aedes can remain dry and dormant for up to several years, we don't really know in this environment. They're very small. I also have some of those out there you can look at. We're going to zoom in on this on the bucket, on the red square, and if you look, you can see these tiny dots along the edges of old water lines. Those are the tiger mosquito eggs. So what we've always talked about with people, dump and drain, right? After every rain, go outside, look for water, and dump it out. That used to work with culex. It does work with culex, but with these eggs, it doesn't. The eggs will remain attached, and the next time that bucket fills up with water, those eggs will hatch and continue the life cycle. So now, it's not just getting rid of the water, you gotta get rid of the containers. You gotta scour them out really well or clean up your yard, and that's the biggest challenge, is because that's tough. That's a tough message to sell. We talked about the initial infestation in El Monte, South El Monte. That map shows the current infestation of Aedes in LA County, and you can see it's very widespread. Scarily widespread. We deal with a lot of issues in urban areas, and we provide a lot of perfect habitat. We irrigate our lawns, we grow a lot of containers. Every one of our potted plants has a saucer under it, right? Get rid of your saucers. That'll go a long way to getting rid of these mosquitoes. And now with water conservation and water collection, a lot of homeowners are collecting water to use on their potted plants. And those are often open containers. These mosquitoes can even lay their eggs and live a complete life cycle just in the water that collects in the leaf axils of some plants, like bromeliads. And this is probably the biggest challenge we have, is that a lot of our communities now look like this. The lower income areas have a lot of clutter, and the clutter tends to collect all the rainwater. All this rain we had today A yard that looks like that has thousands of potential water sources, and again, they don't have to be very large. And even some of the water collection and devices such as yard drains can breed a lot of mosquitoes. We have a lot of focused efforts. Most of our effort has been on source reduction, going out into communities and working with residents to teach them what to get rid of and what they need to be concerned about. We drill holes in buckets, and we also monitor our underground systems. One of these species, the yellow fever mosquito, seems to like to use our undergrounds, which is a big problem. So not only do we have above ground water, but we have the mosquitoes that thrive in the underground systems. So a lot of our messaging about water conservation and preventing runoff really resonates with us too, because if we can keep water out of our undergrounds, that will help reduce our mosquito population in the summer months. You can see we started this approach with eradication, was our ultimate goal. When we first identified 80s, we thought they were in a nice confined area and we'd have a chance at getting rid of them. As the population continued to spread, that goal is now unfortunately quite out the window. And our ongoing efforts and door-to-door control efforts, the population has expanded so far that even that level of control is of limited value because we just can't get to every property. A lot of this falls back on residents to take charge of their problem areas on their property, and that goes with cities and agencies too that might unintentionally be creating vector breeding sites that may spread these issues. We started, I should go back to this one, we do a lot of residential control, and then last year we have been working with University of Kentucky on a novel approach, which is utilizing a sterile male mosquito technique. And it seems to be quite effective. We're waiting for a final hurdle to be approved, and then this technique may be widespread. It's a pesticide-free approach that we're really excited about, limits our need to use pesticides, and lets the male mosquito do the work for us. And a lot of this, again, it's outreach. So we spent a lot of time and effort in outreach. There's a lot of ways that we've been doing this, and won't spend any time on those now. My information is there. Feel free to contact me at any time. Those of you who don't know which vector control district serves your area, you can go to westnile.ca.gov. It's the state's CDPH's website on West Nile virus, and in the top upper right-hand corner, you can enter your zip code there, and it will tell you which district serves your home address or your work address as needed. And for health and travel information, please visit the CDPH website or the CDC. They have a lot of information on there, and it's changing daily. So it's not one, we don't even put the information out anymore because it's changing so fast. But please do, if you're traveling to these areas, take those precautions. And if you're returning from these areas where any of these diseases are spreading, make sure you're wearing repellents and avoiding mosquito bites when you get back home. Okay, that's it for me. Next up will be Brian Reisinger from West Valley Mosquito and Vector Control. Brian and I have worked together for years. We've both worked together at San Gabriel Valley Vector Control, and he is now the Community Outreach Coordinator at West Valley. And a lot of years in
Thank you very much, Kelly. Yeah, Kelly was my mentor when I was just a young pup coming out of Cal Poly. And I really have learned a lot through all my time since about '99. People always ask me, why did you get into this thing? Why did you get into bugs? And it's because it's such a dynamic and ever-changing job, which is one thing we're going to be kind of talking about today, which is these BMPs, or stormwater management devices that we've been dealing with. You want to go through here? Our district boundaries are right now the city of Chino, Chino Hills, Ontario, Montclair, and Rancho Cucamonga. We serve about 199 square miles, and we have about 20 people on staff. And I'm going to go skip through these because I think Kelly did an excellent job of explaining how the vector control districts work, and we're very similar at West Valley. So, on to the matters at hand. We're looking at 2016. We're trying to figure out what we're going to be dealing with. Some of the most important things are the invasive species, the stormwater retention devices, BMPs, and the upcoming El Nino, these sporadic rains, the warmer temperatures, all these things mean that there's going to be a lot of potentials for mosquito breeding. So looking at these stormwater retention devices, after the passage of the Clean Water Act, all these new developments had to have some kind of way to get the stormwater through and keep a lot of the trash and that initial flush from getting into the stormwater systems. There are millions of different types, and we'll look at some of them here. They can be very, very difficult to detect. As our guys are driving around, it could be something as innocuous as a little grate in a parking lot, but underneath there can be all sorts of things going on in there. There's issues with ownership. Sometimes these things, when they're first put in, the developers are responsible for the maintenance of these things. Then it may go into the corporation, or it could be even private citizens. If it's on their property, they become responsible for it, or it could be owned by the cities. So trying to track down who actually owns these, who's responsible for them, and getting them the information as to how they need to maintain these can be very, very difficult for us. And they're difficult for us to maintain. We will try to go out, we'll apply pesticides to them if we notice that they're breeding, but when we have a rain event or even just the urban drool, it can flush our pesticides and make our pesticides less effective in these systems. So if picture's worth 1,000 words, this video's worth 1,000 mosquitoes, I think. This is actually one that was taken from a BMP. You can see that it's just that little access hole there where you would put in one of the pry bars. And if you watch closely, you'll see mosquitoes are flying out of here with absolutely no problem at all. There goes one. There's another guy. So, these mosquitoes were just actively using this and flying in and out of there with no problems at all. Let's see I think there's another one coming. That's pretty good. There it goes. Now underground there, of course, you have just a perfect soup that's prime for these mosquitoes to be breeding. Here's a look at some of the above ground ones, something as innocuous as like this bioswale here with all these rocks that kind of helps to slow the flow of water and allow it to percolate. Well, if there's issues with percolation or trash buildup, then all these rocks can be potential puddles that can breed mosquitoes. You have here something that's in the back, kind of hidden away, very, very difficult for us to find and make a determination as to whether it needs to be treated. And you have some of the larger ones, when you have issues with percolation. Then you have these large areas that are underneath the grates. They always hold a little bit of water. That's just kind of how they function. And they will get rid of all that trash. They'll keep it from going into the system. But when you get all that soupy organic material and water in a nice protected habitat like that, you can imagine how quickly mosquitoes will ramp up and breed in there like crazy. You can see here, this is a lot of that organic material. And this is why maintenance is so important. Those things have to be cleaned out, or else you're going to end up with just a prime mosquito environment. Here's an even larger one. When you have these issues with the percolation, you can see you get the moss buildup, all this organic material. This can become a huge issue. This is an underground vortex type unit. The trash will build up in here, and you'll get all this organic bio buildup, and it just becomes a really, really nasty mess. So we are now dealing with almost 1,200 stormwater retention devices, or BMPs, throughout our district. 76 in Montclair, 102 in Chino, 197 in Rancho, 732 in Ontario, and in Chino Hills, 87. So this is a huge, huge drain on our resources. I want to talk real quickly, too, about another type of retention system using the idea of rainwater barrels. And we think that that's a wonderful idea, but we want to have some kind of education cooperation with putting these out, because without that, I left it up there. Without that, rainwater barrels can become almost invariably a mosquito breeding habitat. Even Dr. Chang has admitted to have had mosquitoes growing out of his rainwater barrels. So, we can help identify the right types of consumer grade insecticides that people can use, like these mosquito dunks. Actually, just a quarter of this in a rain barrel will last about 30 days, and it will work very, very effectively. So, providing, I think, education and letting people know when these rain barrels come in that they need to maintain them, that they're not going to be just a one-time thing that they can ignore from the time that they're installed, is extremely important, and we're looking forward to working with you guys on that. I'm going to go ahead and stop here. So thank you all very much.
Thank you for joining us, Bill. This is Bill Walton with the University of California. Bill, I'll let you read his bio. He is extremely involved in the world of vector control and on the research side. He has been a huge wealth of resources for the Vector Control Association of California, as well as the American Mosquito Control Association. And he serves in many respects, but his research has been outstanding, cutting-edge research that really has kind of opened the doors for managing mosquitoes on a lot of these constructed treatment wetlands. Can you hear me? You ready to go?
I can hear you. I'm ready to go.
All right, you're on.
All right, thanks, Kelly. Good afternoon, everybody. Constructed wetlands are built for many reasons and often are intended to fulfill multiple goals. In most instances, constructed wetlands are built to improve water quality and for water reclamation. Other goals include habitat replacement, habitat mitigation. It could be built for wildlife conservation. It could be built as part of education facilities and for research. It could be built for recreation, for example, seasonal duck hunting. And they could be added as amenities to human developments. Regardless of the intended uses for a constructed wetland, if you build it, they will come. If you build it and it has standing water, you will have to control mosquitoes. The question becomes how often and how much will it cost? How to design and manage a wetland matters. So mosquito control in constructed wetlands requires an integrated approach that incorporates multiple types of mosquito control. Ideally, you want to design mosquitoes out of the wetlands as much as possible. This includes design features and management approaches such as basin design, topographic configurations, how you control the water in the wetland, vegetation management, planting design, what macrophyte species you include in your wetland, and if at all possible, to limit allotment subsidies such as organic matter input and input of high levels of nutrients. If the implementation of these approaches is inadequate to control mosquito production, then adjuncts to wetland design and management are needed, such as the addition or supplementation of mosquito predators, such as the mosquito fish in the lower left, or the use of mosquito control agents that are specifically targeted against mosquitoes. The rightmost panel shows a bat box. The use of bats or birds such as swallows as control agents is ineffective against adult mosquitoes. What you put into the wetland also matters. So the abundance of mosquitoes is influenced by loading rates of organic matter and nutrients, for example. These panels illustrate the abundance of mosquitoes in habitats that have different loading rates of organic matter and nutrients. In the upper left panel, it illustrates the abundance of mosquito larvae in dairy wastewater lagoons. wetlands. I think you'd be hard-pressed to call this a wetland. Nevertheless, the high levels of mosquito production are nearly continuous throughout the year in places such as Southern California and the Central Valley. The panel in the upper right illustrates mosquito production from temporary wetlands, detention basins, stormwater wetlands. As long as the water remains in the habitat for short periods of time, then mosquito production could be restricted to a comparatively short window of time. If the standing water remains in those wetlands for 7 days or less, then mosquito production should be low. The panel on the lower left illustrates mosquito abundance in wetlands receiving secondary treated municipal effluent. Mosquito production in this case will be continuous during the periods of the year when adult mosquitoes are active. The panel in the lower right illustrates mosquito production from constructed wetlands receiving tertiary treated municipal wastewater. While mosquito production on an aerial basis can be comparatively low, adult mosquitoes will be produced during the period that adult mosquito activity occurs annually. Large wetlands can still produce large numbers of mosquitoes. It also matters what you put around the wetland. Birds that inhabit the wetlands, as I'm sure you heard today, are the reservoirs for viral pathogens such as West Nile virus. The viruses cycle between the birds and mosquito vectors. Adult mosquitoes do not limit their activities to the area circumscribed by a wetland. Adult mosquitoes will move into the surrounding landscape in search of blood meals, as well as disperse from the wetland natal site in search of other habitats. The birds that live in association with human residences, such as the house sparrows and house finches shown on the left, are very good amplifiers of mosquito-borne viruses. This increases the likelihood that arbovirus infections will spill over into human populations. Now, large macrophytes are typically planted as part of the treatment process in constructed wetlands, so the type of emergent vegetation that you'd find in a typical constructed wetland would include the two species of bulrush shown in the upper panels, the common reed in the lower left, and the cattail in the lower right. Dense populations of these plants can form an impenetrable mat of vegetation which enhances mosquito production, reduces the effectiveness of mosquito abatement, and reduces wetland performance for improving water quality. And in addition, these plants are expensive to manage when you have to do so. So mosquito control can be expensive. If you want to harvest this vegetation, the typical cost is somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000 per hectare, or even more. Emergent vegetation can incorporate heavy metals and other toxins into the biomass, so if this harvested vegetation is determined to be a toxic waste, then off-site disposal adds significant costs. So for example, were you to hire these folks to remove their vegetation, the cost is $130,000 to remove 1.5 hectares of vegetation. So that's about 3.5 acres. This will need to be done every 2 to 3 years. Moreover, in this wetland, there are 3 wetland cells. So by the time vegetation removal in the 3rd cell was completed, vegetation had grown back appreciably in the first wetland that had undergone vegetation management. Controlled burns are another option to control vegetation. While controlled burns cost less than vegetation harvesting, extensive permitting is required. Your neighbors aren't really that appreciative of the ash that settles out after a controlled burn, and moreover, the burned area may release significant levels of pollutants upon inundation of that burned material. The third approach is to dry vegetation, knock it down with heavy equipment, and then inundate this dead, dried vegetation. This approach leads to extremely high levels of mosquito production. Here's a picture of a wetland in the Prado wetlands in Norco that has undergone vegetation knockdown and mowing, and that mowed vegetation was left in the water. This approach led to extensive levels of mosquito production. How much, might you ask? So how you manage the wetland is going to matter. So the Prado wetland is about 186 hectares in size. On average, it produces about 5 million to 7.25 million female mosquitoes between the period from July to September. The type of vegetation management illustrated in the previous slide would produce about 500 million female mosquitoes during a 6-week period from that small wetland that's encircled in red in this figure. The preferred management approach should change from one in which a wetland is filled with emergent vegetation and is managed using bulldozers and front loaders to knock down and remove that vegetation, to one in which expanses of open water are created, which greatly enhance the natural mortality factors affecting immature mosquitoes living in the water. Isolated islands of vegetation will help to reduce mosquito production as well. Better still, if emergent vegetation is restricted to narrow bands and we can take advantage of the natural growth patterns of macrophyte species such that emergent vegetation is reduced during the early part of the year when mosquito populations typically increase, then we can take advantage of natural mortality factors to help reduce mosquito production, possibly use water level manipulation to sink the dead vegetation and enhance the reemergence of macrophytes in the spring. So does proactive mosquito abatement successfully reduce mosquito populations in wetlands receiving poor water quality and containing dense emergent vegetation? How much does it cost? This slide illustrates mosquito control at a wetland near Tucson. In order to reduce mosquito populations to the levels seen in the red line, bi-weekly or weekly additions of larval control agents were required, as shown by the top row of blue, green, and brown arrows. Virus activity was still detected in the mosquitoes, particularly in August and thereafter, and weekly or semi-weekly applications of chemical insecticides were needed, as shown in the lower row of arrows, to keep the mosquito populations in check. The cost of mosquito control in 2016 dollars ranges between $5,250 per hectare per year to up to about $10,000 per hectare per year. When aircraft are needed, costs increase markedly. The cost for mosquito control of the Prado wetlands in Norco can range considerably from about $6,300 per year to $67,500 per year. In the case of 2001, when the wetlands were comparatively open, only about 3 of the 50 ponds or wetlands at the site needed mosquito control. In contrast, in 2015, about 40 of the 50 wetland cells in the Prado wetlands required treatment. One of the other things that's changed within the last decade or so is that in 2001, 60,000 mosquito-eating fish, namely mosquito fish, were stocked into the wetland. Cal Department of Fish and Wildlife no longer permits stocking of mosquito fish into waters of the U.S., so these fish can no longer be used in any water body that has contacts with waters of the U.S. Okay, so we can ask then, are constructed wetlands likely to produce Zika vectors such as Aedes aegypti and Aedes albopictus? And the answer is no. As you heard, Aedes aegypti and Aedes albopictus larvae occur in container habitats. But wetlands, man-made wetlands or constructed wetlands could include intermittently inundated areas that can produce other Aedes mosquitoes, such as Aedes dorsalis. Aedes dorsalis is a competent vector of encephalitis viruses, and unlike Aedes aegypti and Aedes albopictus, which do not move very far as adults, this mosquito will fly long distances in search of hosts. Constructed wetlands can also produce prodigious numbers of nuisance midges. Now these don't bite, they don't vector any disease, but they're still a problem for people living nearby. If flowing water occurs, particularly over hard substrates such as cement channels, then black flies that bite humans could be a problem. Now this would have been my second to last slide as of Saturday. But as of Saturday, some Brazilian scientists incriminated another mosquito as a vector of Zika virus, at least in laboratory studies. Now laboratory studies, the fact that a mosquito can transmit the virus in the laboratory does not mean it can do so in the field, nor does it mean it's an important vector in the field. But Culex quincunfasciatus is a vector of Zika virus and very competent vector of West Nile virus and other encephalites in California. The closely species Culex tarsalis is also a very competent vector of arboviruses. If these mosquitoes are confirmed as vectors of Zika virus, then their production from constructed wetlands will be problematic for us. They are far more prevalent in California than are the 2 Aedes species. So here's a list of design features and operational procedures that help limit mosquito production from constructed wetlands. Comparatively low organic loading and nutrient loading if possible, low coverage of vegetation. If you can build a wetland where that vegetation is reduced by natural processes, all the better. How you control the water is important. Naturally occurring mosquito predators, supplementation of mosquito predators is a way to help reduce mosquito production. Compartmentalization is important, so if you have to turn off a component of the wetland, you can do so without turning off your entire wetland system. Dikes that can accommodate mosquito control vehicles are imperative, and obviously the focus of today's meeting, excellent working relationships between agencies is critically important. The lower panel there shows some of the agencies that have supported the work that I've talked about today, and I'll stop there and I'm happy to take any questions with everyone else. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Your presentations scare me every time I hear them. So as you can see, mosquitoes are definitely wetland issues and urban issues, and those of you who thought we didn't have a mosquito problem in Southern California, I hope that's changed your perspective just a little bit. I think the reason that a lot of people don't realize the vector problems that we have in Southern California is because there's a lot of agencies that have been managing these problems for a lot of years, and it's kind of kept those numbers down. I think we're going to open up for panel discussion. I also want to introduce Min-Li Chang. He's the manager for the West Valley Mosquito and Vector Control District, and he's been in the industry as well for many years. He began his career with tropical diseases and medical entomology, and has continued on with vector-borne disease research and with control techniques as well as the virus cycles itself. He's been a fabulous resource for us, primarily in Southern California, and personally for me, because I don't speak Spanish, and I'm sorry, Spanish. He doesn't look Spanish, does he? Chinese. He's been an excellent resource reaching out to a community that for me is a hard one to hit. I think we'll start with some questions. Is there any questions? Do we have comment cards or question cards from the audience?
Don't know if they were passed out, but we have mine, so.
Okay.
Dr. Renjie, this question is for you. I have a question first, and then I'm going to have a couple of comments. I didn't hear anything here today much regarding West Nile. 2 years ago, when I was at the Los Angeles Unified School District dealing with integrated pest management schools, we had to come up with a program pretty quick to deal with dead crows that were being found on the campus. What is the current status of West Nile in Southern California today?
Well, it's still a serious issue, public health threat to Californians at state level. And last 2 years, actually, the human cases number actually are pretty high compared to previous years. And also, I think last year have the highest fatality, many new invasive cases in California in the last couple of years. So the reason we did not talk about the West Nile virus because of these Aedes species involved, and dengue, chikungunya, and the Zika case.
Let me add two quick comments here. The Zika virus was first discovered in 1947 in the Zika forest of Uganda in rhesus monkeys. It's been simmering there for a long time. The belief is that the virus was taken to Brazil in people that attended the World Cup from many areas of the world. As you know also, the Olympics is coming up in Brazil, and it's going to attract people from all over the world. And there's a terrible case of Zika down there in Brazil, and they have not been able to do a good job in dealing with the vectors or the people or anything else. So you're going to have people going there, you know, in any Olympics, you have people, lots of people, and they're going to go and they're going to come back. And when they come back, they're going to become reservoirs for the virus. The Zika has not been, no transmission from human to human. Influenza type transmission is recorded in the United States. You got to have a vector. Somebody is infested, mosquito bite that person, go bite somebody else, and that's how the disease is being carried. But the potential for people coming back from Mexico, Central and South America, the Caribbean, all of South America, and bringing the disease back into the United States is going to be a big issue.
Yeah. On top of that, even bring back, and now people concerned about going there also. You have travel, the business, people worry about going to Brazil now because of the Zika virus, because of mosquito bites over there. And then because of the sexually transmitted cases discovered, make things more complicated. So I think excellent comments and questions. And I think in the next few days, there's a big Zika conference in Brazil. And Americans actually sent the CDC people, American Mosquito Control Association also sent a member there. And actually part of the mosquito was from Brazil initially and participated in this discussion of this kind of thing. I'm sure the WHO, the CDC, and many countries will be involved in discussion. Especially mentioned the Olympics is coming, absolutely right. And that'll be a big issue if not completely lower the mosquito population or find some way to battle Zika virus over there.
I'd like to make two comments, quick comments. One is Zika transmission, local transmission is happening in Puerto Rico and U.S. Virgin Islands currently. That's probably something that we need to think about. I'll leave my second comment later.
If I could just, can I just add one quick comment to that? Zika is definitely the big news item, but we've been concerned with the exact same scenario with dengue virus and chikungunya viruses just as easily coming into any of the regions where the Aedes now inhabit. And Zika virus, aside from the pregnancy-related issues that we're hearing a lot about in the news, most people who get sick with Zika, it's a pretty mild illness. Contrast that with chikungunya virus that affects about 80% of the people that get bitten by an infected mosquito, and dengue and chikungunya are both pretty significant diseases that are quite debilitating and can have long-term consequences.
Well, dengue is the same. Dengue in about 80% people have no symptoms at all. But most important, these diseases show very similar symptoms clinically. So unless you do blood tests, you can't tell the difference.
Let me add it on, because talk of diseases themselves. I think Zika virus became like a more, people pay more attention because of the baby have a smaller brain, these kind of things. So I talked to some physicians, don't quote me, but they said if you want to get one of the three diseases, you probably want to get Zika instead of chikungunya and the dengue viruses. So, but I think because of the next generation affected, people pay a lot more attention to it, and there's no vaccine or anything. So, this is kind of really big issues at this point.
Peggy Hayes, the CEO of the Ontario Chamber. One of my concerns is, Brian, you were talking about this, when you're looking at the stormwater maintenance, we already have, representatives from the city that go out and test the stormwater runoff from our businesses. Now we're going to be dealing with the next layer of, that captured stormwater. Even though we have the grates and all that in place, we don't contaminate the stormwater, but we have standing water that is now producing these, daytime aggressively biting mosquitoes. And also with Ontario, we have dairies that still are in existence. So who is ultimately responsible? Is it the business owner, as it is with stormwater runoff, or is it our county vector control and making sure that our business owners are in compliance so that we aren't having or producing these breeding grounds unbeknownst to them? And then how is we as a chamber, how do we get involved to best align with you, get this education and this information out to our business community? Because many of them aren't represented here today, but we do have several ambassadors in the room, and we want to be, stand alongside with you arm in arm so that we can curtail this problem.
Well, I'd like to make one correction. You are here, you're served by a West Valley Mosquito and Vector Control District, not by County Vector Control. It's a separate entity. They do responsible for other parts of the county. Whoever responsible, who owns the BMP is responsible for the cleanup. So it could be a city, could be a property owner, could be an HOA. And in fact, near Victoria Garden area, the association, the management company is responsible for cleanup. If you don't clean up, we will force you to do it. And we work with the city code enforcement to get it done because we need to protect the people. We will treat it, all the basins, all the BMPs as necessary. But if the BMPs are not cleaned out, the treatment will not work. That's why we have to use enforcement to get the property owners to clean up the BMPs.
Yeah, the health and safety code mandates that the property owner is responsible for the water source, and we do have pretty strong language in the health and safety code that allow us to abate those sources. The problem that we have, though, is a lot of planning departments and governmental agencies create plans for water management solutions, and I know everybody's mandated to do something with stormwater without the understanding of the vector potential that it breeds. So they put these great systems in place that do their job. Vector control is very often out of that loop completely, and we've been talking with water agencies, we've been talking with city planners, stormwater managers, and industry folks for a long time, but they're not mandated to work with vector control. They're not mandated to reduce mosquito production while they manage the stormwater issues. And we don't have the resources to go out and follow up on all of these. I mean, we're chasing our tail as it is, just with West Nile virus. Now we've got BMPs and stormwater capture devices. Now we have invasive Aedes on top of that and new disease concerns. So it's a huge challenge, and I think that's what we hope comes of this today, is that we build some of those relationships to work together. As you're putting plans in place, contact vector control to say, hey, is there an issue with this that you see? How can I design it differently to reduce that risk in the long run? And then, as to your point with your, as the chamber, we love that. We find a lot of problems with small auto repair places, tire distributors. All of these back lots breed mosquitoes like crazy. Drainage systems that are put into every residential site now. Everybody wants to have a yard drain on their property, right? Every one of those yard drains underneath the ground where we can't get to is going to breed mosquitoes. So there's a lot of things we can do on the front end that really make a lot of sense. So we appreciate that.
Yeah, we 10 out of 12 months, we check every BMP at least once a month, sometimes twice a month, depending on the locations and the production level of mosquitoes. And we treat it as necessary. Speaking of the yard drains, in Chino preserve area, we found that they're breeding mosquitoes. And we advise the property owners to drill quarter-inch holes into the bottom, to drill about maybe 15, 20 holes, then fill with the gravels. That way the water will not stand there to breed mosquitoes. Water will percolate, but we never have a layer of water to breed mosquitoes. So that's one way to solve the problem.
If I could just speak real quick to the, what can we do? Let's partner up. Give me a call. Absolutely, we would love to do more, presentations. We can provide you with literature to give out. But yeah, absolutely, we would love to be more involved in that way.
By the way, every year we have an interagency workshop. Usually happens to be somewhere around February, March. And this year we already had ours because El Nino, so we want to bring this meeting up sooner. We'd like to invite all the local agencies, either private or governmental, to join us. We can discuss what we need to do, how we can work together. So if we have your contact information, we'll make sure we invite you next year.
This question is more for Brian. I use water barrels at my home, and I wanted to know where you can purchase the, what's it called, the mosquito dunks?
Dunks, yeah.
Is it a hardware store? Do most hardware stores have them? Or about how much do they cost?
Yeah, Home Depot, Lowe's, Ace, I think, yeah. A lot of the home improvement stores have them available. They might not be in the 2-pack, it might be in a 6-pack, but if you have a 6-pack like that, you'll have over a year's worth of mosquito control. They say something, like say those water barrels, you can break them up, it's safe to break them up. We have information on our website about using the mosquito dunks. We have some videos and things that we posted up on there. We encourage you to go see. But you can break those dunks up, put what it is, it's actually Bacillus thuringiensis israeliensis is what it is. That kills them, but you just need to know it kills them. You can break up small chunks, put them in there. and you'll get about 30 days worth of control.
Amazon.com is always a good source. You can buy from Amazon.com.
Oh, okay.
It's a bacteria that specifically kills mosquitoes, nothing else.
And how about things like bleach?
Bleach only works temporarily. You have to use so much, it will gag you. No, don't ever trust bleach for that purpose. And yeah, it does not work. It kills algae very well.
Al from Chino Basin Water Conservation District. I was curious, do the mosquitoes have this virus naturally, or do they have to be exposed to it? First question. The second is, it's spread through human travel, through like container travel, internationally. Could it also be spread through like trade winds?
What's the last one?
Could it also be spread through trade winds or something like that?
I can answer that. 2001, the more recent introduction of the Asian tiger mosquito was a result of the shipment of lucky bamboo, which is, I think Carrie showed one of the slides. At the time, CDC issued embargo. No lucky bamboo can ship via shipment over the sea. So this can be done. And also over there, they use some kind of pesticide to clean the storm of the lucky bamboo before they ship. So people go there and check that out. The first question, you mentioned the mosquito naturally infected. There's a study said there's transovarian transmission from mother to the offspring, but the percentage is very low, less than 1%. We just heard a couple of days ago, one expert from WHO gave a presentation about that. So most likely, it have to be acquired. But then you talk about chicken or egg, which one first? We don't know.
Thank you.
A question for the gentleman from Riverside. You said that they stopped stocking with the mosquito fish. Why?
They're not native to Southern California, so they're viewed as an invasive species. The great thing about mosquito fish in terms of mosquito control is that they're very hardy. So they have wide physical tolerances, wide chemical tolerances, wide environmental tolerances, but they're potentially a serious invasive species. They outcompete native fishes. There's evidence that they prey on the eggs of amphibians, native amphibians. So you can't stock them into any water that has a connection with waters of the U.S. They're really great in places like abandoned swimming pools or in fountains or in horse troughs where the fish are limited there. There's not much vegetation to interfere with their ability to eat mosquitoes or to deter mosquitoes from laying eggs.
Okay, another question. I saw a slide that said something about they are transmitted, this virus is transmitted via male bitten by female mosquitoes. How does that?
Now,
Go ahead. I don't know who had a slide. Someone had a slide that showed.
Female mosquitoes that are transmitting the virus. It's a mosquito that has to take a blood meal, and only the females are doing that.
I believe it may have come from my presentation where I was talking about the sterile male program that we started last year. We're using male mosquitoes that are infected with a natural bacteria, but incompatible type of bacteria. We're releasing them into the environment where the Aedes are found, and they seek out the females, mate with the females. All of the eggs that female lays are sterile, so she can no longer lay eggs. So that's, or viable eggs. That's probably what the confusion was. I apologize for that.
Okay, so, and one other thing. I've noticed that I saw a lot of things that says that it's not our blood type that attracts mosquitoes, but I'm prone to mosquitoes. So what is it? Is it, I know I heard something about they like the protein. Is it the protein or lack of protein in our body? What is it? I don't understand that.
It's a $1 million question. I think some research said blood type also important for attracting mosquitoes. I heard like a blood type of O is more attractive. I don't know. But this kind of things is not necessarily scientifically proved. People talk about this, and then Certain people have their unique odor, these kind of things also, so.
Right, it's very much driven by your
It's
own
nothing
personal
really
body
scientifically
chemistry.
proved or anything.
Many factors, your body, skin chemistry. If you're a very active person, you breathe more, you exhale more CO2. It's many factors, not more than one. So some people, mosquitoes don't like them, but most people, mosquitoes do like them. So unfortunately,
So when you say get tested by your doctor, what do you just ask for, bitten by a mosquito, and what are you gonna ask to test them?
well, usually exposure, if you have certain symptoms, then you can talk to your doctor. Like a fever, muscle aching, joint pain, or may even have a rash. Those are very typical symptoms, which is a lot of times really indistinguishable from a bad flu.
It was mentioned early on that one of the best sources that you guys have to find these instances are through people, individuals. What is a good resource to give to people? A lot of times we get calls over at the water district about standing water. Where do we direct them so that they can report?
Many websites. Each district, mostly in Southern California, have a website. And also the CDPH has a website too. And the CDC has a good website. So actually there are many websites you can look up for information. But you're always welcome, if you're in our district, welcome to visit with us. We're going to supply you push pamphlets.
Thank you.
Okay, if I can interrupt real quick, we promised to have you out by 1:20 to 1:30, and it is 1:20 now. We're going to continue with the question and answer as long as you're interested and as long as our panelists are willing to stay. But I would like to tell you that we are going to post the presentations on our website for you, and that is www.cb like in boy, WCD like in dog.org. And then we did pass out a survey for you. It's on your table in front of you. If you please fill that out for us and leave it at the registration table or on the table where you're sitting. And then Drew, the gentleman to your right, will be glad to give you a tour of our facility following the end of the presentation. And thank you again for attending today. We'll go back to question and answers now.
Eunice,
Yes.
we have plenty of dunks to give away today.
They have brought several boxes of dunks.
Yeah, we have 60 of them, so 62 packs.
62 packs of dunks for you today.
Community, I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Within the boundaries of your district, are you seeing evidence of continued reintroduction of these Aedes mosquitoes from overseas?
Well, we discovered Aedes aegypti for the first time in the history of San Bernardino County last September, totally by accident. And then we heard from the county vector control, they found an Aedes albopictus in Upland. But luckily, we're annexing Upland. Hopefully, it's going to happen this year. And to our east, in Riverside, they found Aedes aegypti. So it's everywhere. It's a matter of time because Aedes aegypti and Aedes albopictus are very good hitchhikers. They can ride in your car from one place to another. People who work in Aedes infested areas, like El Monte, they can easily bring them back in their car. Plus, people do exchange plants. The eggs laid in planters can hatch out later on at some point in time. There's a lady collects bromeliad, 6,000 different kinds in Orange County. They found that her yards infested with Aedes aegypti. When they exchange bromeliads with other people, what do you think? They can easily transport disseminated mosquitoes. So it's all man-made.
Hello. Just wanted to thank the panelists and all the staff at Chino Basin Water Conservation District for putting this together. It's been very informative. We do design work that includes both passive and active stormwater capture. And I guess I have a two-part question. One is, in the passive capture, we try to do surface water infiltration, so dry creek beds, as opposed to subsurface drain lines to move the water. Wondering if there's consensus on one way being a better system for reducing mosquito vectors in terms of either capturing on surface or in pipes. I think it sounds like you would all recommend doing surface drainage if possible and capture on site. The second question is with, I understand that dumps are effective for smaller cistern types, but what do you think is the best management strategy for larger cisterns? And that's it, thank you.
First, it doesn't matter, it's a subsurface or surface. Maintenance is the key. As long as you have a scheduled maintenance, there wouldn't be a problem. The problem is usually the BMPs let go for a long time. And so the dunks, depending what size you're talking about, each dunk is good for 100 square feet surface water. Did I answer your question? I don't know who was asking the question. I tried to, okay. Yes. So if you're talking about 200, 300 square feet, you can put the 2, 3 dunks in there. So that should work. But if you talk about much larger area, then then probably may not be the best way to go about it. Maybe the other products. And if you may want to talk to your vector control associate, the districts, to try to get some help.
And the one thing we might also talk about is treatment. There's only so much you can do treatment-wise. Ideally, we do exclusion. So any kind of input into that cistern or rain barrel, if it's very well sealed and screened and maintained, as Minley said, mosquitoes can't get in. Now, the 80s are very tiny and they can squeeze through tiny gaps. So we're even recommending now, instead of the standard screening, the 1/8" screening, 16th screening, which is very tiny, is really what you need to have. But screening breaks down pretty quickly, so it's something you have to maintain on a very regular basis. But seal all entrances into any water holding container, and that will keep the mosquitoes out. You don't get them in there, you don't have a problem that you have to treat chemically. And as far as how best to manage water, my preference, instead of capturing and holding it, is just infiltrate. Infiltrate, infiltrate, infiltrate. Just push it down into the ground. It needs to go into the groundwater anyway, right? That's where we really want it. So ideally, if we can keep rainwater from going into the undergrounds, that helps us tremendously. If we can get water into the undergrounds, helps us fantastic, because mosquitoes can't breed under all that dirt and gravel.
There's one question here.
As a resident, I went through the barrel program. I'm only getting 2 barrels. I bought 4 additional barrels.
I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Let me switch. It should work. Speak right in.
Excuse me. As a resident, City of Pomona gave you 2 barrels. I bought 4 additional barrels, tied them together, have a little electric pump to pump out the water so I can water the yard from them. But I've noticed that because these programs that they have, I'm seeing what you were seeing, that they're not including the right agencies. They have these this landscape design people that come in. They did 3 in our neighborhood. And I'm asking them, because I watch them when they're doing it, and I said, you're not including how to clean this, or how, if it doesn't work, the overflow, and you see things sinking because they're not designing it correctly. And I don't know if they're not getting it's a requirement for them to go through additional training to do this properly, but I'm not crazy to just suddenly tear up my yard and do what the other neighbors are doing, because I'm seeing problems from it already. Is there any long-term, when you include the right agencies to make sure that these landscapers who are trying to do it, I mean, it's a business opportunity because it's the end thing to do, but they have to do it correctly for that particular area?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's one of the challenges with the law that governs what we do, is we don't have any control over what is produced. All we can do is manage what happens at the end. And we've been working with the state, trying to get information into the CEQA guidelines and EIRs, and so that when an agency or anybody develops any kind of project, one of the questions they have to ask is, will this development cause mosquito problems? And if yes, mitigate it like this. But we don't have that as of yet. So at this point, we're still playing catch up and trying to work with all the water barrel folks to get the information out. The water barrel manufacturers don't really want to talk to us because that makes their product less palatable if people recognize that, hey, this is going to be a public health issue. I may capture some water, but it's also going to breed mosquitoes. So it's a challenge we've been facing with and dealing with now for several years.
Yeah, and I'll take advantage of holding the mic. We have a series of classes for homeowners that address these issues. We also have a series of classes for landscapers called the Qualified Water Efficient Landscaper Certification Program. And everybody that's been through that class has had a slide on vectors. So we are starting to get the information out to some of the professionals who've come through this facility. Last question?
Relative to the bromeliads, did you tell that woman to put Bacillus thuringiensis?
Yes, yes indeed, yes. Our team on the vector control worked with her and control the problem.
So that is a good treatment for the homeowner.
Right, there are other BTI products like granules that can be put in there, so in small quantity can easily control the breeding.
But you have to get some into each one of the little leaf axils that hold the water, so it's a real problem.
You can get it in a powder form.
No, not powder granules. They come in can, but in small granules. It's very easy to apply.
Okay, because I also have it in a powder form that you mix with water.
You can, but it'll be hard to do it. Depending on the area, the powder doesn't go into water easily.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Let's very quickly thank our panelists. Thank you all for coming today.
Please help yourself. There's literature out on the front table there or over by where the food was. Help yourself to goodies there and give us a call if you need anything.